this done. I want to talk about working some smaller pieces of rock. We see a lot of videos, people working big rock, you know, nice stuff. But when you're first starting out, you know, you don't really have access to that. You really don't want to beat up and tear up a lot of good rock till you understand things. And I think you can learn a lot from working rocks like this, because they have a lot of the problems that big rocks do, as opposed to just, you know, pressure flaking points out of thin flakes. You know, this is good too, but you know, there's not near as many problems in this piece of rock as there is in this rock. This is a piece of citronelle that I spalled off and that I picked up out of my trash bucket. But it's big enough to make a pretty nice arrow point out of it. It's got some pretty cool color in it. But it's got a lot of problems to solve. It's pretty thin out here in the middle, so that's going to be easy to lose this tip while we're thinning this thing down. It's pretty thin right in here. And it's got some big mass back here in the back of the rock that we've got to thin down. It's got a couple little curvy issues. We got to lift the edges up and flatten that rock out. But so let's see what we can do here. I use indirect, pretty much Rob my style, straight from Track Crafty. I watched his videos for about 2 years while I was learning to nap, and I do a lot of things exactly like he does, you know, and it works. It's a really good tool. I have some problems with direct percussion because I've got a damaged eye and I don't have very good vision in it, and it's very difficult for me to strike the edges exactly where I want to. So using this indirect style allows me to hit exactly where I want and not miss the platform. So this is the biggest indirect tool I have, and whenever I need to undercut a lot of mass real fast, this is kind of my go-to tool. I use it on big rocks, I use it on little rocks, and I use it pretty late in the stages on some of these small rocks. When I'm really trying to thin them down, I don't have enough rock to sit here and whittle away at it and, you know, death by 1,000 cuts. I've got, you know, 3 or 4 good shots to thin this down and get the problem solved and start working the rock. So how I hold this rock is going to be important. I'm going to need to brace this tip so this tip doesn't bend, and put a lot of pressure up here to support that tip so this tip doesn't bend when I'm striking back here on this edge. I'm going to try to drive down this ridge. It's lower than the edge that I want to save. So I'm going to hit up here on this platform and drive down this ridge. I use a brass rod to strike directly on that copper. A lot of guys don't like that. I do. It creates a lot of initial shock, which will, when I set the tool high up on a platform, it allows the tool to initiate the crack high up in the thick part of that platform and undercut a lot of the mass real fast. Also break rock real easy. So I'm supporting under there with my fingers like I showed you without the pad. I'm gonna put the tool right on that platform, and I'm gonna tilt the rock up, because the angle that I'm looking at, this is flat. You know, you see a lot of videos and they talk about setting the angle down. Well, that's when they've already got an elliptical biface. So this is the plane that I'm looking at. So to get that plane level, I need to tilt the rock up and shoot across it. And I shot all the way across, all the way up into here. I didn't quite get as much as I wanted, but I did some good. And on rocks like this, I really don't have anything in mind when I start other than fixing the problems, and then whenever I get the problem fixed, then I'll start working with it. I didn't have the angle turned right. That one went in there and hinged. Not a big deal. I got a lot of width to work with. So I'm gonna drive right down this ridge here, sitting on this platform. Yep. Crushed on me. And that happens. Set right here. This low edge. Try to blow back through here. That flattened it out a good bit. And that's what I was talking about, that real intense shock of that first hit on this stuff really breaks that platform. When you have the tool set real high on the platform, it gives you that initial energy to start that fracture. And you know, I like it. It works well for me. I've got a little finer edge now. I'm going to switch to a little finer end of my tool. The platform that I've got to work with now is a lot thinner, and if I start hitting with that much power, I'm going to crush it, and it's not going to do what I want. So I've got this little lip right here. I've got some mass right in here I want to try to drive off. And went all the way up into here. It's already a lot flatter than we started with. So I need to try to get this piece off right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this rock way up on the edge, and I'm going to hit it with this indirect tool and take some real short flakes down to set up a platform. So we kind of lowered that edge a good bit. I think that'll work. Platform's not big enough, it's not wide enough to use the bigger end of this tool, so I'm going to use this again. And when I do this, I want my hand braced up against the back of my leg here, so that this hand can't move when I hit it. I want this rock not to move anywhere when I hit it. There's the flake. It came off from back here. So now we're starting to get that edge flat. You know, like I said, it's a shame to go in and tear up a big piece of rock when you're learning, but you got to learn somehow. And you can't solve problems unless you work problems. And I think these pieces of rock are a good opportunity to do that. Every problem that you solve on these rocks just applies to the big rocks on a bigger scale. And I like to use a little bopper. Head's coming off. Kind of get the edges set up. I've got some thin stuff and it's curved down. I'm just going to take that off. I can't strike on it, it's too thin. I just need to work it back. And there's a big lip right here. It's a big concavity, so I can't drive anything from this side. It's going to be really tough to drive that stuff uphill or undercut that. So I need to keep coming from here and drive through into the back of that concavity. Zoe, stay away from those birds. Get back, come here, get. So I'm gonna try to drive this ridge to get rid of this thickness right here. Now this piece is a lot flatter than when we started. We've still got that one little crazy hump right there, but we'll get to it. Right there, and drive that thickness off. And it was a good one. Blew all the way back up into the middle of the rock right there. So that helped us out quite a bit. Keep working on this square edge back here, just driving flakes down the ridge on that square edge. Hit right here. Hit right there. Uh-oh. That happens when I set the tool down. We kind of got a little triangle ridge right down the middle of this rock, and I think eventually I'm going to be able to get in it and run an in shot like a flute on there and just drive it straight off. There's a little thickness down underneath here. I'm going to set up on this platform right here and drive down into it. It's going to be a wide, shallow flake. Crushed on me a little bit. This rock's a little bit dry. Not a very good platform, but we'll give it another shot. We'll set up a little higher. And that did some good. That cleaned it up a little bit. You can see where it's a little rough. And here where I crushed it with that second shot, cleaned it up a little bit. Keep working along the straight edge, the square edge. There's a platform. I'm gonna hit right, put it right on there and hit and drive right down there. I'm always supporting this back end of this piece that's already thin. Because if it's gonna break in half, that's where it's gonna do it. Alright, now I can kind of run an end shot on the end, straight down this ridge, kind of like I'm fluting. There's almost like a little fluting nipple on that rock. It's just like driving a flute. So now I've got another ridge right here. I can drive straight down the edge of the rock. A little thinner. Start working in here. Just keep hitting lower spots, and I need to thicken the edge up. I've got to hit it with a bopper or rub it with a rock, braid it, thicken it up a little bit. So the rock we started with in the beginning had that big square edge on the back of it, and now we've pretty much worked it. It's not a true biface, but we've flattened it out and we've solved some of those problems. And we can start moving to smaller indirect and pressure flake on this and start shaping it into an arrowhead.